There we go. Wow. Okay then. Oh, that's funny. I completely forgot to add myself to the stage. How long have we been going already without any sort of audio? 2 minutes. 2 minutes without any audio. Oh, that's beautiful. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome. Say for a somewhat impromptu live stream going on here tonight. It's a Right now there's a winter storm going on outside, so having a little bit of a fireside chat sounds absolutely fantastic and wonderful to me at the moment. A chance to warm up somewhat and talk about a few things. And let Scott know uh, that he is invited to this live stream. All right, there he is. Okay, well, I see right here. ISO came in, dropped a couple of comments on earlier, and here we've got Roblox. I'll just quickly read this from Roblox. If you're looking for creative solutions, then search for creative solutions to destroy the Maginot Line. Results are Banana Blitzkrieg. Imagine a battalion of soldiers armed with oversized bananas. They stealthily infiltrate the Maginot Line, using their bananas to jam the gears of the massive artillery turrets. As the French defenders scratch their heads in confusion, the banana-wielding troops dismantle the fortifications one fruit at a time. Victory is sweet. Yes, victory is indeed most sweet. Fun little thing for anyone who doesn't know about the Maginot Line. The Maginot Line worked. It absolutely worked. And you want to know how we know that it worked? Because the Germans did not try to break their way during the Blitzkrieg invasion of France, because that would have been absolute suicide. And you can actually still go today. If you go to Eastern France, you can still see fairly large segments of the Maginot Line that have been transformed into memorials, into museums, places you can visit. I myself haven't gone. I really, really do want to go and actually check out the Maginot Line. But a really, really excellent YouTube channel, World War II in Real Time, did a fantastic little walk on over to the Maginot Line, and they did interviews with people there. They showed off many of the fortifications that still exist. Guys, there is literally a castle in a canyon. It's like something out of fantasy. You're just walking along, you have no idea that there's this canyon in the middle of the forest. Boom, there's a canyon. In the center of a canyon is this castle, and the castle could crank out these massive turrets to start shooting people. This is like steampunk fantasy whatnot that the French came up with after World War I. And the Germans didn't want anything to do with it. They went around. So yeah, Maginot Line worked. But it also it worked the same way that the Great Wall of China worked. It's imposing, it's beautiful. No one in their right minds actually wants to go through it, so people just went around. Oh boy. And if you actually want a little bit of fun history right here before we start diving a little bit more into storytelling, a fun little bit of history right here. Did you know that Mexico demanded back in the 1800s that the United States build a wall from the Gulf of Mexico all the way to California? Most Americans don't know that. The reason why is because the Mexicans had been invaded constantly by the Comanche and by other tribes. And at one point, the Comanche had even sent an entire army down south to Mexico City and had taken or at least had sacked a fair portion of Mexico City before having to retreat. The Comanche were eventually caught and defeated in battle, but the Mexicans were like, enough is enough. And so after the U.S.-Mexican War, when the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed, one of the things that the Mexicans were like, look, you can take half of our country, America, just build a wall, please. And America's like, how hard is it to build a wall across Texas and out to California? after they signed it, they sent out people to investigate the land and start plotting forts, start planning how to build a wall. And within like a year, Congress already started getting reports saying this is impossible. If you say that we have to build a wall out here, we will never be able to make it. Not even if we made a wall of fortifications could we ever secure this border, because it's so insanely difficult with rivers that constantly are shifting and changing. The arid atmosphere kills half of our people. No, it's impossible. And so where I live in Tucson, the reason why Tucson is part of the United States of America is twofold. Number one, they wanted to have a nice smooth valley to put another transcontinental railroad through it, and also they basically paid Mexico for Tucson way too much money to basically tell Mexico, sorry, we can't build a wall. It's impossible. Here, have millions and millions and millions of dollars. And Mexico's like, fine, we'll take the money. True fact. It's hilarious. It's a hilarious bit of American and Mexican history right there. From Rubens, fun fact: in the 1910s, inventor of the modern concept of the aircraft Santos Dumont committed unaliving yourself because he entered in deep depression because his invention was used to kill people. And in 1935, it was used on Brazilian people due to a constitutional revolution. That is really depressing. That's basically like Nobel and dynamite right there. Why didn't they just invent the water gun? Literally Mexico genius card. Absolutely. Good evening, Tevin. Good to have you here. All right, let's see. I got a message from Scott. Oh, I need to make sure that I let Scott in. Yeah, instructions for guests. Say this is the first time that I'm doing such a thing. Oh my. Oh well. Oh, we gotta upgrade that. Oh, come on. Yeah, I'm already trying to let Scott in. Oh no. Come on. Let people in. Let them in. Oh man, that's a oh there we go. There's Scott.
Am I in?
Yes, Scott, you are in. I can hear you. And your audio sounds beautiful, at least on my end.
I mean, I got a new mic. Can the chat hear me? Just want to double check.
Let's hear. Keep talking right here, and I'm also gonna.
I mean, I could talk about a new book I started today, which has been super freaking good. If you've ever heard of Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, it is such an eye-opening book. Like Andy Weir always does really good. Okay. I'm getting trolled on the chat. Thank you. Anyway, so Andy Weir is always really good at doing like near future science fiction, and he like really does his homework on the actual I'm getting gaslighted and I don't know what to do about it.
Keep going.
But doing the actual like science behind the book. And so this one's this like astronaut on this spaceship that's like way far out in the space, just waking up, has amnesia, and like I don't know, Andy Weir does a really good job, especially with like The Martian, and like there's other books like that he's done. But like The Martian and Project Hail Mary, you've got a character who's basically by themselves the whole time. And so you're getting a lot of their thought process. You're like really into like the character building for that character. Yep, that's it. And like it's such a beautiful book so far. Like it mixes between like the character's thoughts and like whatnot as they like start remembering more and more into the story, and it just keeps getting better and better as it goes. I love Andy Weir. He's such a great book author.
Such a great author. You know, I Excuse me. I like thinking about like putting in the actual like science and the effort to figure out, okay, how would something actually work? It reminds me of what a lot of people were complaining about when I was reading Shadow of the Conqueror from Shad Brooks. A lot of people were complaining about how he put in the math to help like make sense of how the characters were like manipulating their mass in order to like basically play around with gravity, the laws of gravity, and the physics of wind and whatnot. And the thing is, this is that like after reading it, it is interesting. It actually is really interesting to get the physics of like what would happen in a hard magic system. It's just knowing how and when to apply it. Because one of the problems that Shad made, one of the mistakes that Shad made is like in the middle of an epic fight, he suddenly started talking about how to manipulate mass and how the manipulation of mass could alter how you fly on the air. And it's like, I don't need to know that.
Yeah,
just tell me that just tell me he's flying magically through the air,
right.
And like either before or afterwards explain the physics behind how he does it.
Right. I mean, if it's relevant to the story, like in Project Hail Mary, the main character is a scientist. Like all of this is based on like real science, but it like science fiction is like the what if situation that they're going through. But you're having to like knowing all that science and like really getting into it, it really puts you into the space that's going on, into the character's mindset, into like explaining how everything's doing. If you've got a story that isn't based on that, suddenly throwing in the math or the science as it just becomes exposition at that point, and it's useless.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm scared. I'm scared to actually get into any of like to get too deep into any sort of like real world mechanics for some of my magic, and not just simply like Legend of the Ten Lords, where everyone's using their imagination and breaking all the rules of how the universe works. But like things such as like bleed, steam, and steel. Like I think it like I found it fun to add in like how there is a strain on a paladin driver's body using the giant mech suits, because of how like you're basically piloting a train with moving body parts. And so just like with a train doesn't stop on a dime without it hurting a whole lot. It's the same thing as using these, but I don't need to necessarily get too deep into what would actually happen if you had a machine that acted that way, because oof, that would hurt.
I mean, it's not bad to like here and there throw in something, but like it's little comments, maybe a sentence, like not even a full paragraph onto something that's relevant to what's going on. If you suddenly go into like a full page of exposition, then yeah, it's gonna throw people off.
Yeah. Hey there, Midnight. Good to have you here. And quickly catching up with some of the stuff that you guys have dropped here. I know Scott's been interacting with you guys there in the chat. Let's see here from Rubens. I mean, all of my schools, they always ordered me to never warn my friends about work. They should have the discipline to know about it. So yes, we are trained to do everything alone, and this is all because of our obligatory military service. I do like that students should know to be accountable for their work. But having been a teacher, I always had to remind my students. I have to tell Roblox says I have to tell my team that we all share the same grade. Yeah. Man, that can get a little. Once again, speaking as a former teacher, I've got thoughts on that, because there would be some students who would just not do anything. I'm like, I'm just failing you. Because I'm giving the good grade to the kids actually did the work. Ruben says, and if you wonder, we are thrown into deserts, jungles, and mountains alone, which is why we are taught to do everything alone. That's yeah. Hey, it's just like ultimate scouting. Roblox, increases the pressure, at least on the students who want to get a good grade. The students who don't care are just going to be like, whatever, I'm not going to do anything. Oh, it annoys me so much when I see that. Yeah, for kids in that for kids in that particular mindset, I really wish that I could have just like taken them outside and be all like, "You're digging a ditch," and if I don't see that ditch at that like at so many meters in the distance or so many yards in the distance, when I come back on out, I will call up your parents and demand that you get suspended. You either do your work or you do hard labor. It's one or the other, because that's how life works. If you want to make a living, you're either using your brain or you're using your brawn. Let's figure out which one it's going to be for you. I'm a cruel teacher. But to answer the question that was asked a whole lot earlier, what to do about what about the disembodied head that's on the thumbnail? That was because my editing skills aren't all that great. So if you'll pay attention to where the cartoon Lars head is, there's also a part of like a shirt that doesn't conform very well to the rest of the image. So that's so I was just like, yeah, that's noticeable. Let's make a joke about that. Alrighty, so y'all stepped on landmine. Lars used to be a teacher and he's got stories to tell. Yes, I've got stories for days. So Scott, want to talk a little bit of anime while we've got you around?
Sure, why not?
All right. So I'll just let you know, I have queued up some footage from Villainous Level 99, and to everyone who was around last week for when the stream got shut down because I used too much copyright material. This time I have sliced and diced everything up so that way we could actually see some stuff from Villainous Level 99 without infringing on the copyrights. So we could do that. So Scott, do you want to talk Villainous Level 99, or is there something else that you would like to talk, and we'll just have the fire running in the background while we do that?
We can throw on Villainous Level 99. I'm good with that.
Okay.
I haven't kept up with the anime, but I have read a lot of the manga, so
you're stop phone. Yeah, you're way further ahead than I am when it comes to the general story. All right. So Scott, this is something I was talking about last week on the failed live stream. Mm-hmm. and I want to get your take on this. Yumilia as a girl boss, yay or nay?
Okay, that's an interesting thought. I would say yes, just as a gut reaction. Mostly because she's a character who, like, she's always running off of her own will. She does what she wants when she wants. She has her own way of doing things, and she doesn't really care all that much about what other people think. Like, she wants to fit in, she wants to live like a normal life, but that's because she doesn't want to deal with all of the like extra attention she's going to get, which she fails at like getting into that route, just period. Mm-hmm. But like, she's very much able to do things on her own, like on her own merit. She's able to just continue forward wherever she's at. And so yes, I think a good girl boss character is like that. They've got their own will, they've got their own like sense of action, and they're just gonna keep going.
Yeah, I agree. That's the argument that I was trying to make last week is that like a good girl boss is a girl who is able to use her talents, her wit, her powers, if she has any, her skills, in order to overcome the obstacles that are thrown her way. And usually what we see, like what really makes what you could say a girl boss, is someone who has a very large obstacle against, like, that's set in her path towards success, or that maybe society is kind of set against her, or the workplace is set against her. And like, I mean, that's kind of what's like delivered to you in Villainous Level 99 right off the bat. she's been reincarnated into a society where anyone who's got black hair is seen as evil, and then she uses dark magic, and there's not exactly a taboo, but there's prejudice against that. And then she is the daughter of a noble family, and that sounds great until you realize that they are nobility from the sticks, and people in the capital city don't like nobles from the sticks. So she's already got all of that going against her, and like in the most recent episode, that was kind of what it was all about, like how much of an outsider she is, and how what's his bucket, Patrick Ashen, whatever, random German words thrown together, how Patrick is one of the few people who actually interacts with her without any of all of that social baggage that she's got to deal with.
Well, and I think it's the big difference is, like, if you're going to have a girl boss, you've got somebody who's an active character. I think that's the bare minimum. I mean, you can have somebody who's reactive, who has like a really like upfront and personal like personality, but I can't see them playing a more passive role in the story if that is their personality, unless they're one of the like side characters or antagonists, and even then you want them playing an active role in the story. I feel like a lot of good stories are better off when you've got like your protagonists and antagonists, groups, people, whatnot, being active in their own right. And it's, even though they have to be reactive to some of the things they do, it's their own decisions on how they deal with that. And you're able to clearly see that.
Yeah, and I really like that distinction. That it's not just, if they have to be reactive, they're not just simply reacting to the situation, but that they kind of take control of the situation by doing something that's very much them.
Right.
Coming up with something that works for them.
I feel like Roblox is down has a point, is like, what if it's just a boss that also happens to be a girl? And I think that just goes back to the character. Back to the character. You can have somebody, and I've had bosses like that. I've had ones that are very proactive and very friendly, and they're able to like get along with their employees and the people like we're working with. But I've also had some that don't talk to their employees and like don't interact with people. And the one that was actually super friendly and was able to handle things, she's a full-on girl boss. The other ones, they have their moments, sure, but you could also say that for anybody. So
yeah, and thinking about like in terms of a character, like you want, like, if you're looking at a character who's a lady who also happens to be a boss, what we would then expect of her is that we would get a chance to see, if she's just a minor character, that we'd get to see some details, maybe have some quick commentary on how she's a self-made woman. We see how she's able to control her work environment, how normally, and this is one thing that's important, something that I feel is lost on actually writing a good girl boss, is coming back to what you said, Scott, they're personable. They're someone who isn't just there to be like, I am the queen of the castle and everyone will bow to the tyrant. But actually, like, a very capable girl boss is someone who wins people over through her earnestness, through her charisma, her intelligence, her wit, what have you.
I think the big thing there is just like, there's somebody that when it requires some acid and like vitriol, they're able to do that, but they're able to switch between like those different things. But like, you can also have a girl boss that like the business is failing, things aren't working out so well, but a lot of the times in those stories, that's something they necessarily can't control. I mean, you get a lot of like bosses and managers who, yeah, they're the boss in that one location, but they have a lot of corporate people above them. And so overall, they don't have a lot of control over everything, just everything in that small sphere of things. And like, when they're able to handle just that stuff, it's great. But like, you can't, like, there's always going to be something you can't control. And I think that makes the story more interesting when you're able to show is like there's so many things going on. The character is only able to do so much, and you're gonna have to figure out what you can do in the situation.
Yeah. And Roblox brings up actually a very good example. Jay from Murder Drones is a girl boss because like she has her or are you talking about V? Because oh yeah, episode 5 because that's home. Yeah, definitely. Jay has got her girl boss moments in episode 5 of Murder Drones with helping to break out Tessa, fighting against Eldritch V, and she also has her boss moments in the pilot, putting N in his place. Like it's a negative moment since she's one of the villains at that point in the story. But yeah, it works on out. She's a girl. She's in charge. She definitely acts that way, and you get a chance to see it. Even though Jay's not really on the screen all that much throughout Murder Drones, she is one of the most recognizable characters in the series because of her dang personality and her awesome hairdo. the twin ponytails really sell it. So Roblox, that's a good example. But actually, one thing I want to bring up before we move on to something else here, Scott, as far as like girl boss moments go, let me move this on over. There was a girl boss moment that at least I would typify as a girl boss moment in Villainous Level 99, where we see Yumila put a potential suitor in his place. And I loved how it was set up because you have what's like playing right here, the conversation with the queen and how the queen is explaining things to her. And I really like this. I love having nobility in a story who aren't just a bunch of scheming scoundrels who are just like, yeah, so this is the situation. And these are our cards, and we like you. We actually want to keep you on our side because you're so powerful. You will be a benefit to the kingdom. So if you stay here with us, understand this. We want you to stay with our faction, with the noble faction. Our opposing faction is going to try to appeal to you because they're going to want to capitalize on your power, and they believe that they can elevate you from an outskirts noble woman to a much higher noble woman if you join forces with them. So I like that. Like I like having that moment right there where things are kind of made sense for the audience and for Yumila, because that was not a part of the original Otome game that she played. And then boom, we're introduced to Mr. Purple Hair right here.
I love, and I think that's one of the things I love about this specific like kind of isekai, the like shoujo focused villainous isekai, is that it relies a lot more on like the court intrigue, and you're dealing with the nobles and the reactions of the people to the nobles and like everything, and you're able to like get to see all of that, and it makes a more interesting story instead of just one random guy getting transported to the other world, and the only other characters you really get to know are a bunch of like sycophantic girls without a thought in their head that keep going after him. Like it gets so boring after a while. Like, and I'll still read an isekai like that just because I like a lot of the fantasy aspects. I'll keep reading it, but like I don't know how much I enjoy it. Like something like this, something with a bit more actual like story and character interactions, I'm gonna enjoy a whole lot more than something that's been beat to death already.
Yeah, I agree, and I enjoy this right here. I think I'll say it's one of the things that really works out well for both the manga and the anime is just how well the deadpan is delivered, which is something that like if you're going to write a book is actually really dang difficult. It's so hard, in my experience, to deliver a good deadpan comment or a good deadpan character in prose, because you have to hope to the heavens that your audience understands the deadpan character and can communicate and can translate that kind of humor or delivery in their own heads. Whereas when it's visually presented, whether it's drawn or animated or even live action, you can see and you can hear the beauty of the deadpan, which that is Yumilla's character.
Mm-hmm.
Her personality is deadpan. and it just works so well. But if you were to translate this into prose, like I personally would have a hard time doing it. I feel like I would really have to get into her head and be juggling the entire time, outer reactions versus inner dialogue the whole time to try to set up and deliver that deadpan. And I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's that. Those are all my leftover thoughts for Villainous level 99. So unless there's anything else you want to bring up for it, we'll pop back on over to the nice crackling fire.
No, I'm good.
All right, here we go. Come back to the little flames. Woohoo! So Scott, I'll pitch on over to you. What's some of the anime that from the season that's been sticking out to you? I know you've been busy, so I'm not sure what you've all been able to keep up with.
So I've been keeping up with a lot of Solo Leveling. Let me see. Let me pull up my list. Leveling and Skimichi, Moonlit Fantasy.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're following that.
And then the only other one I've been putting effort into is Metallic Rouge, but I haven't had the chance to catch up on that one. I'm still on episode 2 on that one.
Oh, I need to start watching that because it looks good. It looks really good. I've been having fun taking my time with the Beast and the Witch, and I need to go back and rewatch the previous episode again because I wasn't paying as much attention. I was trying to do too many things at the same time. But like the last episode was legitimately spooky. Like I was impressed with how they were able to pull off all of the zombies in that episode.
Okay.
I was like, woo! I was not expecting that.
I like that.
Yeah,
so Leveling's been good. I mean, I've read it. I haven't finished the actual manhwa, but I'm close enough. I might as well have. So I already know how the story's going. I'm just excited to see how it's being animated, and I like what I'm seeing. I do really like what I'm seeing there. So it's been pretty good. I had that video come out earlier this week talking about how it's a Cinderella story. It's basically bottom to the top, and I can't call it lazy storytelling because there's some actual really good stories that use that story structure, but I also feel like it's an extremely overused trope. But it's one that actually connects with people.
Well, here's something that I've wanted to do. I know I've brought it up once or twice, but I haven't really gone into detail on it with you. But I've really wanted to kind of do a Solo Leveling abridged, but where it's not just simply poking fun at it, which is what most abridged series do. But go at it from the angle again of as a writer and writing advice, and have the self-aware commentary be how these overused tropes are actually done well in the story. So have the characters be totally self-aware, lips flapping, and actually talk about how it actually works out really well. Such as, for instance, oh, the screen actually follows his head. When I saw it, I was like, yes, that's actually the way it should be, as opposed to every other story where it's just there and doesn't move. and it's like, yeah, that would absolutely be a mechanic, and that'd also get really frustrating real fast if it constantly is moving with your eyes. You're like, stop it! I'm trying to see around you.
Well, and I like how he realizes very quickly, because like if you suddenly found yourself in a video game and you're the only one who has this like status screen in front of you, like you start talking to yourself, you start interacting with that, and other people don't know what you're doing, you're gonna look crazy. And I love that. Like I love that.
Yeah. Oh man, that would just get that would just for me just get so awkward after a little while. I'll just be, oh, dang it. I just be like, there's a fly in front of me. You're being very specific with how you're trying to swat at that fly. I know. Don't question my methods.
Right.
Yeah, no, solo leveling has been good. And I've enjoyed the adaptation thus far. Though at the same time, the adaptation is kind of also like, again, pointed out, where a story, for instance, can get just like a little bit silly. So I mean, and here's the thing. Again, I understand that he's going from weakest to strongest. So of course this guy's gonna be like, woo, I'm gonna put tons of points into strength. But there's no min-maxing. There's no quality build whatsoever to this guy. If he actually puts some points into his intelligence, he might actually finally realize that all of the girls are interested in him. It's like the cosmic powers of manhwa are like demanding, like, no, because this isn't a pornographic manhwa. No MC is allowed to realize just how much the women are into him.
Or by the time he actually realizes it in the manhwa, he just doesn't care.
Yeah,
I feel like that was a very like interesting part of the story once he got that far. Like there was so much going on at that point that, like, as the characters finding out the actual like what's going on behind like the leveling up system and like the powers and all that, the mystery behind all of that, like even though he could, and like he did go on a date with like one or two of the characters, like was too focused on like a lot of this other stuff. Though by that point like Jinbu entered this whole like, I'm super cool and hot and nothing can break my like stone mask that I put on, and like it just goes like that from there.
I mean, and it's one of those things that, like, as outsiders, we have to be like, okay, there's definitely, I think, something more cultural within Korean society that's going on here that would make more sense of this.
So see, that's what's fascinating about solo leveling, and I hope it does okay. But I'd love to hear more of the reaction of like Korean fans to this, because like it's a Korean story, it's a Korean like webtoon manhwa that is being made into a Japanese anime, and like their cultures have some similarities, but there's also a whole ton of differences. And I'm curious to see like some of that backlash necessarily between the cultures there, because from like reading the comic and reading and like watching the anime, I have noticed a few differences, and I'm a little curious how that's gonna work out. I'm also really curious because the manhwa puts Japan in a super bad light later on in the story. Super bad light later on in the story. And I'm curious to see how the anime
handles that. Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to, I mean, not having read as far ahead as you have, but it's always very easy to place the blame of an entire nation on a couple of bad characters and say it's all their fault rather than the country's fault. And so like that would be an easy enough of an edit, I think. But yeah, definitely if you see it go that way, then you know that the Japanese are altering things because Japan makes anime primarily for the Japanese audience. Even if they're taking stories from another country, it's meant for Japan. And
Yeah, but you also look at because like I have during like the opening and ending credits, I've paid attention to the amount of like different names that they're showing in like who's working on it, and there is quite a few Korean names listed there.
mhm,
Though and I think part of that is because it is a Korean story that they're having Korean people work on it. But I also think part of it is, and I've noticed that with a lot of other anime, is that it's not it's anime is no longer made by just one studio anymore. You'll have a bunch of
yeah,
studios working on it, putting it together, each one working on different things. And so you'll have some studios in China, in America, in Indonesia, like all over the world that are going to be working on bits and parts of this whole story. And but the one that like is going to have the name attached to it is the one that's like in charge of it. So with Soul Leveling, it's
yeah,
A1. With Metallic Rouge, it's Bones. But like it's really a bunch of different studios working on it anymore. And I think
yeah,
that's like part of why it's so expensive to make a full-on anime anymore. Because like I was reading things a while back about how like the price per episode of an anime being produced is so high that like in order to get
mhm,
stuff off the ground they've had to do like full on like GoFundMe and like stuff like that, fundraisers, like trying to get the fans interested in order
yeah,
to produce something. And it really depends on how popular the manga, the manhwa, the comic or something like that is before it like really takes off.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot, and that's a much deeper conversation to get into. But we got an actually excellent question right here from Tevin. So I'm going to derail
Go
a
for it.
very interesting conversation, one that actually has like great portents for the future of anime. To answer this question right here, does your story have soft or hard magic systems and world building? It comes
Okay.
from Tevin. So I can say this for myself. I have largely soft magic systems. However, here's the thing is that immediately when you say soft magic, so many people immediately think, oh, a character will like wave their hand and then something will happen. And you can definitely write that way, but I prefer having my magic systems be where there's way more possibility, a whole lot more can happen. And so as a result, like if I wanted to actually make this a hard magic system, I would have to spend so much time sitting down to explain all the different rules of how this works.
Hmm. I
Whereas with soft magic, I can have that variety without as much explanation, but I have to then balance that out with good consequences, so that way it's not just wow,
yeah.
whatever I want to have happen is what happens. Yay.
It depends on which story you're talking about when it comes to me, because like I have the Dead Stone Gods world, and then I've got the Magic Chat world. And Magic Chat's definitely a bit softer. Like there's definite like hard parts to it, but there's no like one specific way to do magic. And it's kind of more similar like Roblox is down. It's kind of like D&D where like in the D&D lore there's a full on like it's called the weave. The magic is there's a whole ton of different like magics all like wound together, and you're only accessing one little part of that weave when you're casting a spell, and it's just accessing that part of it to do one specific effect. And so in magic Hat, it works a little bit more like that. um in Deadstone Gods, because almost everybody in that on that continent are descended from dragons originally. All of their stuff is basically hardwired in their DNA, so it's a harder magic system, and you've got the different tribes where different parts of that DNA have been specialized on, and so they're able to take part of it. So like one of them has like a commanding presence, can use it on enemies. One of them can strengthen their bodies. One of them can control like water because of some adaptation. And so like that one has very clear set rules. While in Magichat, it's not all that easy to say. And it depends on the writer. A lot of stories, it'll seem like it's a soft magic system as the reader because we're not given all the details.
Yeah.
When you're the writer, you know all those details, and you could just show little bits and pieces as you like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to kind of go along with something and to build a little bit off what ISO wrote right here. My magic system's very clear rules, and these rules can in no way be violated without catastrophic consequences. Another good aspect of like a hard magic system isn't just simply, oh, there's rules, but as Roblox says right here, it's called science. Like where the magic acts in an almost scientific way, where like if you do this, then this will happen.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that, for instance, makes Harry Potter a more soft magic system is that, for instance, if you cast the spell Lumos, boom, you're going to get light, but depending on the power of the wizard and also the connection with their wand and the power of the wand, that light can be like brilliant or it can be really dim.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, and that's what makes it soft, even though, you know, you say these funky Latin words, boom, spell happens. I need a wand, but then later on it's revealed that you don't really need a wand if you're that magically powerful. But let's just say you need a wand for most stuff. Like you realize that there's a lot of things that are very malleable. Within the world of my book Tumble Teller, which is supposed to later on spin off to be a much larger series, Whitefire. In Whitefire, the magic is almost completely controlled by dragons. The dragons have all the magic, and the only way that anyone else can get magic is kind of like with Scott's Deadstone Gods. You either have to be a descendant of a dragon, or a dragon has to gift you an item that has a magic spell, a specific magic spell woven into it. And the magic for Tumble Teller and for Whitefire, like some people would argue that it is still kind of soft magic, but it does tend to now go more hard magic because of the rules that govern who can have magic, who can access it, and how. But then also, this is then where kind of the science comes in, because like the dragons in my story, why do they have to sleep on piles of gold? It's not because they're greedy. It's because that's the way that they recharge their magic. They need to have their hoards. And so they have to sleep on their hoards, and depending on how long they sleep, they're able to build up a reserve of magic. And so the more magic that a dragon wishes to use, the longer they need to sleep. And then they have that reserve of magic within them, and then the dragon learns over time, as he or she uses their magic, how much a spell is going to sap them of their magic. And so even though there's dragons, like for instance in Tumble Teller, like all of these amazing spells are done to like create shows and make music out of thin air and whatnot, but that magic, like being able to pull off all of these amazing spells, takes real practice and study, because any dragon could create fantastic illusions and summon music out of thin air, but the Tumble Tellers learn how to partition their magic and how to utilize instruments in the world around them to make it easier to cast their spells or to create basically magician effects. It's basically about being a good magician, so that way they don't completely drain themselves of their power. Otherwise, they would run out of magic after one show. And so, like, that's where it tends to then get more into more of the hard magic, when you can then see that there's a certain amount of science behind it. There are those rules. There's consequences to those rules. And you know, if A is done, then B will happen. The more that you get into that, then the more hard magic your system, then the more hard your magical system is going to be.
Yeah. I think I think a lot of people focus so much on if your magic system's going to be like hard or soft that they miss some of the other questions that they can look into their magic system as well. One of my favorites that I've heard about is determining whether your magic system is going to be a sympathetic magic system or not. And what I
Oh.
mean by like a sympathetic magic system is like there's connections between the magics. Like it it goes back to like voodoo. Voodoo is like from all the lore involved with voodoo that I've heard anyway. Like you create like a voodoo doll, you attack its arm, the person it's tied to is sympathetically tied to, their arm is going to get hurt basically. And so in order to have the magical effect that you want, you have to like trigger some sort of sympathetic reaction that's going to cause a bigger reaction somewhere else. And you don't have to do that. Like there's no
Mhm.
guarantee, but like, and I think one of the biggest examples of this, and it kind of takes it to an extreme, but is like the magic system in Full Metal Alchemist,
Yeah.
because it it has a very hard set rule. It's more of a hard magic system, but it's got this hard rule that you can't change the thing's mass. You can only change one thing from another. You can't create anything from nothing.
Hmm.
And like those things have rules. I think the most specific one I can think of is Roy Mustang's ability, the fire. It's him influencing the air, creating like a flammable gas that ignites, and he's able to control that.
Yeah.
And that's a sympathetic magic system. I mean, and it's sympathetic because it's tied to actual science, but there's others that aren't as tied to science as that.
Yeah, and one of the things I do love about Full Metal Alchemist, as you get like deeper and deeper into the story, is that all of it basically comes down to an important aspect of like way crazier physics, how energy creates matter, or how energy influences matter,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what it comes down to. So you have the oh crud! I just had the name right on the tip of my tongue, and I just blanked on it. The not exactly the alchemists, but the people from the Far East who are able to tap into the
Okay.
energy of the earth and basically draw up on it, because that way they don't have to like to use any sort of energy from other items or for themselves. And one of the secrets to alchemy effectively is that you're drawing energy from yourself. And if you have the philosopher's stone, you're able then to draw the way greater potential of a complete human soul to power even greater feats of science.
Right. Well, and I'd have to find the video again, but there's one video by an actual like studied alchemist, like our world's alchemy, going back as far back as it goes, and like the symbology behind it and everything. And he does this huge deep dive into Full Metal Alchemist, into like all the symbology that's borrowed from like our real life like
Mm-hmm.
alchemy. And he's like, this show is more brilliant than you have any
Oh,
idea, because
it
it
is.
connects so well with like actual alchemy that's been created over like thousands of years in our world. Like
And
it
ancient
ties into the real lore
uh-huh.
so well.
And also certain kinds of ancient philosophy. So like for instance, the door that God comes through, and that homunculus wants to break open so that way he can like try to devour God. That door, the symbols on that door are actually all part of way older, more apocryphal Judaic practices, really ancient stuff that goes into the idea of man becoming God. And all of the stuff that's on there, that's all symbolic of the journey of man becoming God. and so like it's interesting because technically within the story, it's even though it's treated as a sin to basically come to the door, it's technically not. You just have to come there for the right reason. And that's what Ed has to learn
Right.
throughout the story, is that it's not that you're necessarily breaking the rules. It's why are you doing what you're doing?
Right.
And like that's such a powerful message, and it's one that I think goes over your head if you're just caught up in the action and the emotion of the moment during the climax.
Yeah. And then like getting into like more like magic system kind of stuff, I think another question you have to ask, and this comes from the author Orson Scott Card that did like Ender's Game. Even though I'm not a fan of the guy personally after some of the stories I've heard about him, but like he actually offers some good writing advice. And one of his biggest when it comes to like fantasy stories is, what's the price for magic? That's another question you have to ask yourself. And like his big example, like in the book I've read that he wrote about it, about like writing fantasy stories and whatnot, is like blood magic. So like in order to cast a spell, you have to sacrifice a certain amount of blood, and like that's what makes the spell work. But like you could have any number of different ways like that price comes out kind of idea. And like Full Metal Alchemist, there was a price. Like you had to pull that energy from somewhere. And that goes back into like, what are the rules of that magic system? And I feel like when you get into like the sympathetic or not argument, sometimes it does tie in a bit more. Like the really sympathetic ones usually tie into a softer magic system, while the hard ones don't necessarily. But I don't see why you can't break those rules. Like I feel like one of the greatest pieces of like writing advice I've ever heard is learn the rules
so you can break them.
So you can break them.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with that. And here's actually another aspect to hard magic that this is something you've brought up, Scott, in the past, is like why like a world that has magic would absolutely incorporate it. It would be like just an everyday part of life. And that's one of the reasons why, for instance, coming back to like the magic of Harry Potter, the magic of Harry Potter at times feels more like a hard magic system because it is so prevalent in the life of the wizarding world.
Right.
Like it just almost everything they do involves magic somehow. And so it's so lived in. I think that's one of the things that makes like the world of Harry Potter endure more so than a lot of other stories that have a lot of magic, because some other stories just don't incorporate the magic as much. It's not ever present in there.
Well, and I think with Harry Potter specifically, it's the magic, it's the world building, it's like all of that wonder you're feeling as you're seeing all these like magical people and places and spells and items and creatures, whatnot, that like really draws you in. It's not necessarily the story or sometimes even the characters. It's all that wonder from like the world that you're experiencing as you go through it. And Harry's a good like way to see that. He's completely new to this situation, but he's got ties into some like serious magical events that are going on. And so you get to see that world as he's growing up, as he's experiencing it. And so in that way, he's more of a like self-insert character, but it works.
Yeah. He's the vehicle by which we experience the world. A comparison I would also offer, and I'm probably the only one who's read this, is Platinum Blood. And the thing, oh my gosh. So here's the thing with Platinum Blood, as far as like the magic system goes, again, kind of a softer magic system, but it's a magic that's very much lived in within the world. It was just really kind of hard to buy because it's like after 2,000 years of all the races of orcs, elves, dwarves, gnomes, humans, what have you, living together and using magic. And like, for instance, like they figured out basically how to make airplanes, but they don't actually do airplanes. They basically have Santa's sled. And like that, and like they make a big deal when a sled can carry more than 6 people. And I'm like, wait a second. If you guys have been experimenting with magic for the past 2,000 years, and they effectively have magic mirrors that act as cell phones, as smartphones, how come you guys haven't figured out how to make a magical airplane?
Well, I think part
like
of that
kind of bugged me. That kind of bugged me.
Right. I don't know. Airplanes are great for like moving people around, but it's not the best option for moving like supplies and materials around. And so if they're focusing their magic more on like moving stuff like in the ocean, or like moving mass amount of stuff like over land like that, then it'd make more sense that like there isn't as much effort put in airplanes when you're actually putting into like moving materials around. And I think that's a major part of like how our world's become the way as it is because we have the massive shipping industry that we do.
Yeah, that's a good point. But like, I just want to say like that's something to think about. Like if you're someone who wants to really explore the depths of a hard magic system, it's also knowing how that magic interacts with the rest of the world, how it's utilized, and how it's been used to help kind of develop society. Because that's absolutely what ingenuitive minds would do. And you don't necessarily need to have like a functioning modern day airplane in a fantasy setting. I mean, you could go like the Da Vinci route, where like Leonardo da Vinci figured out how to make an airplane by building a wooden duck. And so you could have something like that where people are like swans fly really gracefully or whatever, and they're like, I'm going to build a giant mechanical magical swan. Like it depends on the story that you're writing. It really does. The story that you're writing does help to dictate the world, its characters, and whatever else you're doing. But if you're doing a hard magic system, there definitely is an element of just how deep you're going with this. How much is it used? And as always for hard magic systems, if you want great examples, read the works of Brandon Sanderson.
Anyway, it's been great talking with everybody. I need to go.
Yeah.
But I look forward to joining these live streams whenever I can. So I hope you all have a great time talking with Lars for the rest of the evening. And
thanks for joining, Scott.
Yeah, no problem. I'd stay longer, but I already have a previous engagement I need to get to. So
yeah, no worries. I know we've already kept you over long. So have a fantastic night.
Will do. You too.
Will do. And alrighty. So for the rest of us who are here, last couple of things to kind of go on over, because I've got dinner also waiting in the wings for me. Creative solutions, because that was definitely part of the title right here, and it would have been nice to get into that more with Scott. But it was great having that conversation about magic systems, and thank you, Tevin. Thank you so much for asking that. That was great. So creative solutions, and I'll tell you guys why I put that into the title and why I've been thinking about it recently. So if you've seen any of the news recently regarding Disney, you will have seen that there's all different kinds of fantastically crazy things going on. And it seems like the company's on the brink of a big change. That change could be good or it could be bad. Who knows? But it just seems like the company is on the precipice of change. And a lot of people are talking about like, oh, so-and-so should take over the company. So-and-so should sue the company. The company should be torn apart. Yada, yada, yada. And I've got a video coming out. I'm hoping to have it out on Saturday, looking at storytelling, creative solutions that could bring Disney back. And that just got me thinking, like, you know what? Like, how often is it when we as writers are confronted with a problem that we're like, that you just get stuck. You get stuck in your own head, you get stuck with the problem, and you ultimately what you need is you need someone else to come along and help you come up with a good creative solution that works within your story. So I will kind of want to open up to you guys right here, to anyone who wants to put it into the chat. If you have a, a, a problem within your story that you're just like, I just don't know what to do, you can feel free to like go into detail and we can talk about some creative solutions to help you on out. And I might even ask you guys if you have any sort of insights. So let's see here. Coming right here to Roblox. In my story, there was a period of time where people feared magic, so they proposed ideas of living underground from the demand of winter spell. Oh, that's cool. if you know strong bad. Oh boy, that dates me right there. We shall burrow underground and evolve into mole people. No, 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 no. Good night, Tevin. Thanks for being here. It was great having you there, and thanks for asking your question. So, I mean, if any of you guys do have anything to write as far as like certain kinds of problems that you're dealing with, or certain kinds of problems with the story that you're like, is there a way to have a creative solution to this? I do like the idea of, hey, if we're dealing with a constant magical winter, let's just burrow underground, and thereby we can control the environment a whole lot easier. That is a good creative solution right there. As far as like creative solutions have gone for me in the past, so coming back to one of the stories I was bringing up earlier, Whitefire. Whitefire is a story that's been kicking my butt since graduate school, and that is almost 10 years ago. It's going to more like around 9. Actually, it's about 8 years. It's been about 8 years since the idea of Whitefire, this grandiose dragon story, has just been stuck. And a creative solution that I came up with to like explore the world a little bit better was Tumblteller. I asked myself, okay, then I'm stuck in the world building. What can I do? What can I do? And so rather than muddling through trying to force out any sort of creativity in regards to the main characters of Whitefire, I decided, what if I just told a story within this world of Draconia from a completely different character's perspective? This has almost nothing to do with the actual story that I wish to tell. I sat down, started just coming up with who this character would be, and what would their story be, what part of the world would they explore, and that became my creative solution. Rather than bogging myself down with writer's block dealing with this one story, or just I began writing it at one point. I began writing Whitefire, and about a third of the way through the book I was like, this sucks. I'm going to have to throw out everything that I wrote for this. And I just started somewhere fresh. And it was fun. It was absolutely fun to write Tumblteller from the perspective of a completely different character in a completely different part of the world of Draconia, and just have fun. Another creative solution that I've had to come up with again in the past for my book Bleed, Steam, and Steel. Bleed, Steam, and Steel was originally 4 separate novellas, and it was all based around the idea of, what if there was this warlord on a dying planet, a planet that was succumbing to pollution, and I wanted to tell his story, but not through his eyes, but through the eyes of other characters. What would that look like? And that led into the four novellas that were supposed to be for the points of view of Asuka, of Zimon, Lagatha, and General Wesley Arthur. And after I'd written all of that, I was just like, hey, I've got my 4 novellas. Should I release 4 little novellas and hope that people read them? And so I asked a bunch of people, like, what should I do? What should I do? Because I was genuinely stuck. I liked the stories, but it just felt like it was just too disjointed to release 4 novellas separately. And it was actually thanks to a random guy at the store I was working at. I was working at Albertsons at the time as a bagger. And so I was talking with the manager who was working the cashier, and I was just chatting with her, and I was just all like, "Hey, Lisa, so I've got this problem right here. What do you think?" And there's this shopper who came and was getting rung up, and then he just looked at me and said, "Put them all into one book. It sounds amazing." And then he just ran off. He paid for his groceries and he ran off. And Lisa was like, "Yeah, you should do what he said." And I was like, if a random stranger gives me that kind of advice, I think I should probably go with it. And that's how Bleed, Steam, and Steel became one book. Let's see here. So coming to Roblox. Okay, in mind, there are 2 ways of teleportation. The first one is used by the antagonist, which basically creates black holes in a designated location, but I have no idea how they know where to teleport. They are not omnipresent. Okay. All right. So let's work on this right here. So Roblox, this is going to require you to type out some answers right here for us. So I want to know, when it comes to teleportation, are you thinking that a character would have to go to a place that they've already been to, or is this meant to be a power that's kind of like the ultimate portal, where they can just go to a place that they're able to picture, or that is convenient for the plot? Like, I need to know just a little bit more right here. What is your thinking for how they are able to teleport? Or better yet, what's the restriction behind their teleportation? Is there any, or is there none? So put that there into the chat, and we'll build off from there. What is the restriction, if there are any, to how you picture your characters teleporting? I'll take a drink of water while you type. There we go. So this is what Camille's Harem is all about: asking questions and trying to get answers. Oh, nice, very nice. All right. Well, again, as you are typing all that out, I'll just let's see here. Okay, yeah, you are. So this is basically a technology advanced technology, but can only be used by a single user. So no Doctor Strange portals. All right. So no Doctor Strange portals right here. So it's basically advanced technology that we're dealing with right here. Then here's an idea. Here's an idea. This is and tell me what you think about this, Roblox. So I'm going to borrow a little bit right here from Dune. So the teleportation technology of Dune revolves around the use of spice. You have the Mathematicians Guild, and I can't remember exactly the name of that guild off the top of my head anymore. But you have the weird slug people who work with the mathematicians, who computate the design of the universe, and they consume spice so that way they're able to boost their brain processing speed, and then they can harness energy to basically create black holes that allow them, with their advanced ways of thinking, that they can pinpoint a point in the universe from where they are at, and then fold space and time in on itself, creating a portal. Now then, that's the way that it works in Dune, and that requires a ton of, that's what requires spice, a ton of intelligence and technology in order to make it work. If for your villain right here, who is using a form of advanced technology to basically create black holes that essentially fold in time and space right here, I think that since this is, you could play around with this and say, hey, this might not be perfected technology. And we don't yet have like specific coordinates to make this exactly work, but the technology requires that the individual know at least the coordinates, the relative coordinates that they wish to go to with like anywhere on the planet. If they are trying to go, for instance, maybe to another planet, they would have to somehow know the coordinates of that planet in relation to where they are at in order then to pop themselves on over there with a black hole. Because otherwise, if they do not have specific coordinates in which to fold in time and space with said black hole, then they could just pop out anywhere. It might even kill them to do that. And so you have to have a knowledge of where you want to go. And if you do not have those exact coordinates, then that would be a fantastic limitation to your portal technology or to your portal magic. That without the express knowledge of where it is you're going to go, you could easily just get thrown anywhere else, or you could even seriously hurt yourself. Let me know what you think about that. And if you don't like it, that's absolutely fine. You do not need to go with my suggestion right there. If anything, that might at least give you an idea of what you might want to do. So let me know there in the chat. And as you're typing that up, coming back to Rubens, since I have to go to sleep, I shall make a theory. Bill Clinton was an Albanian, and he made the U.S. government completely run by Albanian ministers, and then pushing the style of governance to the rest of the world, which means Albania is behind every war. That, my friend, is and also Doom was run by bacterias. Well, that's a theory, a government theory. I don't know if MatPat would even touch that one, so we will let you run with that theory about good old Bill Clinton. I would add to that he was able to hypnotize everyone with his incredible saxophone playing skills. So that's how Bill Clinton became president. He brainwashed everyone with his amazing saxophone skills. If you can learn how to play a saxophone, you too can brainwash people. And as I'm waiting for Roblox to give their response, just on the note of saxophones, I had a friend in Germany who could play the saxophone, and it is, I don't know if you've ever been around someone who actually knows how to play the saxophone, but it's probably the jazziest thing that anyone can ever really play, because actually playing the saxophone, because of how it's built and everything and how you have to breathe and all that, like it requires that you're constantly moving around. Like you're almost like dancing as you're playing the saxophone. It's one of the coolest things ever. And I never noticed that until I was just up close to someone playing the sax just by themselves. It was cool. Let's see here. So I asked what does guitar do then? Let's create an instrument magic system. So talking about doing stuff with musical instruments. Oh, that is fun. That is fun right there. You know what? I will say this. If you really want to have fun with doing that, I would say the most stereotypical things that you could like write down every stereotypical magic that you would associate with a drum and then scrap it. Don't, like, for instance, like drum, like, oh, as I thump the drum, like with Demon Slayer, stuff changes. Or I beat the drum and like the land rises up out of the ocean. I can control the land. Or as I beat the drum, I can control people's bodies. Toss that all aside and then find something that you would almost never associate with a drum. And I think that would be pretty cool right there. Saxophone hypnotizes people. Guitar lulls people to sleep. Trumpets rally people. Flutes can calm people. I like that. I would say here's something that I would say. Playing the piano makes people talk. So you have like a whole thing of like, we have ways of making you talk. Do your worst. And then someone starts playing do 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 do, and then the person just starts singing like a canary, just blabbing out all their deepest, darkest secrets. So coming back to Roblox, in mind, the ideas are all science, are all science-ish. So the idea of a coordinate system could work, but it could be more coordinated with, let's say, an orbital camera. See, I like that right there. You like that right there. You're already then adding in your own neat layer right there. So it's like, oh, you got to know your coordinates, but you also have to have like another piece of technology that allows you to see basically where you're going and truly pinpoint at some place. And like that could actually work out really well. You could even have an interesting moment for like, let's say your villain, like your villain gets rushed and has to leave and isn't able to use the orbital camera system. And so they just punch in a coordinate, they jump through the black hole and end up like 15 miles away from where they intended to go and just get completely lost. And so like that's something that kind of that really like signals to both the villain and to the reader of like, oh, they were definitely on the back foot. And so the villain has to be like, okay, dang it, next time I need to make sure that I have my escape plan perfectly timed and perfectly planned out, so that way the heroes won't catch me off guard again because I nearly killed myself. Like that could be an interesting little scene that you have at some point in the story, again, if you wish to put it there. But I think having an orbital camera that really helps to pinpoint where you're supposed to go, I think that is an excellent limitation to that kind of a technology, because it's a fantastic piece of tech, pretty OP if you know what you're doing, but it's only OP if all of the right pieces come together at the right time. That, I think, Roblox is a really great idea that you can work with. ISO, we have ways of making you talk. Place Beethoven number 9. Roblox. Also, the music magic could be like the Minecraft Legends melody, where it's like a language. Yeah. Hey Roblox, I am happy that I can help you out with writing your story, at least in some kind of way. You know, I mean, that is what Camille's Harem is all about. That was why we even why our writing group almost 10 years ago even stuck around to begin with. It wasn't just that way we could just say, hey, this is what I'm writing. Okay, yay. But Camille's like, now we're going to write it, and now we're going to share it, and we're going to work things out. And we always dreamed of being able then to connect with people and help them out. So if you have any other questions that you quickly want to put on in there about like as another problem or another block or something you're looking for a creative solution, then by all means put that into the chat right there, and we'll come up with something. And coming back to the musical instruments, yeah, piano makes you talk. Here's one that I'm like, I think this would be fun to do. Whistles make you sleepy. So like we always think that like a whistle would like wake you on up, but like imagine like if you've got someone with a musical whistle who plays it to like make people come like go to sleep. And already right there you could have something interesting, because that's why then everyone owns a dog, maybe, for instance, within this world of magical musical instruments, that people have dogs because the dogs can, since dogs will already hear the whistles ahead of time, you pay attention to your dog, and if dogs start dropping to sleep, you're like, someone has a whistle, block your ears. So there's an idea. Another magical musical instrument. I mean, what the heck? We'll go cliche with this right here. If you play the tambourine, you make people dance. So playing the tambourine, and people start dancing. The more chaotically, or the faster you play the tambourine, the crazier and more epic people's dances moves get. Let's see here. I'll do another one. Spoons. What would the instrument of spoons do to people? That's a good question. I'm kind of stumping myself right there. Magical musical spoons. I had to put that right there. Drums will control people. That's something right there. I kind of like the idea. Drums controlling people. Boom, 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 boom. Uh, let's see here. Roblox. How do you think the idea of a central power source, like a captured singularity, could work? And if it collapses, then the abilities would be lost. I like that idea. I do like that idea, and especially, I mean, again, not knowing everything about your story, but just thinking about like, what if people could draw power, for instance, from a singularity, and uh, and and one of the thing, and I think one of the things that you Roblox can have a lot of fun with is this. So a singularity we know exists in part because of its incredible mass. Now then, because energy and mass do correlate with each other, what if it is that, unbeknownst to the people who are drawing power from a black hole in order then to power up their all kinds of technology and basically their magic system, what if over time, by taking energy from the singularity, they don't realize it, but that they are actually weakening the structural integrity of said black hole? And as you said right there, like, what if it collapses? The interesting thing is this: is that I don't think there's any point in which humanity has been able to observe what happens when a black hole runs out. It's kind of the mystery of black holes. They're just like this constant in the universe. Black holes exist at the center of spiral galaxies and are the things that power spiral galaxies. If you get rid of the black holes at the center of spiral galaxies, you could effectively kill a galaxy over the course of millions of years. Maybe potentially it would take like a billion years, but you could just potentially destroy a galaxy because you would obliterate the source that is generating the constant flow, the creation and destruction of stars, spreading out the material that keeps the galaxy growing and turning and moving through space. So we don't really know what would happen if you were to destroy it. And that could actually be an interesting bit of your story, is that maybe someone begins to realize, oh, as we're taking energy away from the singularity, we are actually decreasing its mass. And as a result of that, because black holes only exist because of their insane amount of mass, what if suddenly, like, you could have some fun right there. I mean, this is speculative, but on my guess, just from based off of what I've learned about astronomy and black holes, is that if you were to potentially, fantasy speaking, if you could remove enough energy or mass from a black hole, the black hole would probably actually rip itself apart rather than collapsing and creating like a supernova, where supernova, the sun explodes and collapses in on itself and everything. That you would have it where it rips itself apart, where the laws of gravity just tear it into pieces and all of that energy is just unleashed. But would it be an explosion like a supernova? I don't know. And that's something that you could have fun with right there. That is your own speculative fantasy, science fiction that you could have a whole lot of fun with right there. But I do like the idea of what would happen if you could somehow make a black hole collapse, and that's got tons of potential behind it. I will say this: there's a point in my own series, my flagship series, The Legend of the Ten Lords, where a character eats a black hole, but because it's like it's the power of imagination. And so, like, if someone's like, I create a black hole to suck you all up, and he's just all like, he looks at the black hole and he's like, that's a nice apple, and he just picks it up. He envisions it in his fingers, like becoming an apple, grabs the black hole and just eats it. And your guy's like, you just ate a black hole. He's like, yeah, it tastes nasty. That's the OP powers I play with right there. There's no real consequence to a guy eating a black hole if he imagines it's an apple. And that kind of takes away actually some of the fun that you can have. Roblox, you just gave me the idea of the opposition using the gravitational disruption to locate the enemy base. Oh, I like that. You got something good right there. So I have a black hole in one of my stories that is constantly rapidly expanding. When the black hole gets destroyed, it creates a wormhole to another dimension. That's cool. I like that. That's a cool idea you got right there. A calm, peaceful, ever still realm of timelessness. I think I would go insane in a place like that. That's how I feel when I'm out on the plains and I need mountains in my life. uh Oops, you messed up. Hey, welcome, Oops. You kind of came a little bit more towards the tail end of what we're doing right here, but welcome, welcome. So I know that was just me kind of rambling right there about what could be done with a black hole, but hey, I like that is what I love when authors start asking questions, and each one of us is probably going off in a completely different direction, just thinking about what you could do with a black hole, and whether you would do it like totally fantasy where there's almost no connection whatsoever to reality, or what would it be like if you actually try to use real science and manipulate it magically or with the powers of sci-fi. From Hannah Heaven, hello, sorry I'm late. I've had a hard time writing my story. I've had a hard time to introduce my OC. Okay then, well, Hannah, tell us a little bit about your character. Take your time. Put down some aspects of your character there on in. If you wish to tell us, like in a sentence or two, what your story's about, that would also help us out with figuring out how to best introduce your character. And I think we can have some fun with that right there. For myself, it gives me ideas. Like I like it like when people ramble, because there's so many things that I can take from everything that they say. Yeah, exactly. Paying attention to what other people say. It's one of the things I loved about being in college, especially as an undergrad. In graduate school, it was always about having conversations about a book, and we never really got all that deep. I felt like we never really went anywhere with like any kind of good conversations as a graduate student, which is really disappointing. In my undergrad programs, my professors would say all different kinds of things where I was just like, whoa, oh, that's so cool. And I could just like run with that. Like I've had an idea of writing a story that would basically kind of be like fantasy Africa meets fantasy Scandinavia, and where it's like a more role reversal where the colonizing force is actually the Africans. So this African-esque people are battling their way up north, and like what would it be like to have, for instance, like the Battle of El Paso, not of El Paso, of Juarez, because El Paso was on the other side of the river. But like the Battle of Juarez, which is a fascinating battle. What would that be like in a more fantasy setting? And so, and like that's something that I've played around with. Like, ooh, what would happen if you had like if you had like this larger black empire that goes up into the Scandinavian area. They come to conquer it. They've got all this fantastic technology, a very proud military society and presence and everything, and they end up on what would effectively be the fringes of their world, and now they're facing against like basically ice wizards. Like what happens when guns meets ice wizardry in this crazy battle for a city, and you just place the entire story there in urban warfare. Like that's an idea that I've played around with for a while. And I don't know if I'll ever write it down. I don't know if I'll ever write out that whole story, but it's something that I've thought about, and it's something that the inspiration for that came from other people just sharing information with me and all that. Roblox, you should keep rambling in ISO. I want more of your ideas to steal. I mean, use. yeah. That's the way it goes. And that's what happens in a writing community. You share ideas, and other people are like, I'm going to take that. Like the idea for Whitefire was not something I was originally ever going to do, but Nathan and Camille, their stories that they've been working on now for a long time deal with dragons. And they have their own unique take on dragons, and they've got some interesting stuff going on there. Nathan's getting close to finishing up one of his drafts, and Camille's right now looking to edit her first book. So they're making their progress with it, but their takes on dragons made me realize I actually don't have many stories that really deal with dragons. I need to write my own dragon story. I feel left out. I need my own dragon story. And so I kind of ran with it. And I think it's one of the reasons why it's been so hard to write Whitefire, is because it was born more out of like, I want my own dragon story. And I've now had to take years of actually like doing it properly. So my only problem is knowing where to begin. And on that point, Hannah, I hope that you're writing out some details for us, because I would really like to see what we can do to help you out with introducing your character. But yeah, ISO, knowing where to begin. Say, and I mean, there's no good answer for this, which is frustrating to hear, because it does depend. It varies from story to story. My suggestion, as far as like knowing where to begin a story, and this could be something that you totally like toss on out, you don't have to use it, but I personally like to introduce the problem that my characters are going to have to face through another character who you will probably never see again, or who you might see again, and that can come back to bite you in the rear. Like my dad, actually, as he was reading Bleed, Steam, and Steel, because Bleed, Steam, and Steel opens up with a character who you do not see again until towards the end of the book. And he was just like, I was a little bit confused, because I was introduced to this character right here, and then I don't see him again. I'm just jumping over to Asuka and General Arthur's stories. And so that can come back to bite you in the rear if you stick with it. But like, I personally find that if you start your story introducing the problem that your characters are going to have to face, that can really help you with realizing, okay, so this is kind of where the plot actually begins. And I can either begin here, or I can begin after it. And once you've written that, you can then juggle it a little bit better and say, okay, this is what works, this is what doesn't for my story. Oops, you messed up. I read somewhere that black holes can reverse time, apparently. I don't remember much, but I think it was because the black hole was like heavy or something. So because of that, there was some sort of time dilation thing. Yeah, people have theorized that black holes warp time within a certain within a certain distance of the black hole, because we can actually measure that black holes way on the very fabric of the universe, that even the matter and the energy that we can't see but that we know is there is affected by black holes, and how black holes transform and warp the light around them, and we use the light to see into the past of the universe. And so if that light has been distorted by the black hole, we're actually seeing a very warped version of the past, and we have to try to piece it together because of how the black hole has literally ripped our understanding of time apart, and then pieced it back together as the light bends around the black hole. It's pretty fascinating and crazy. So here to Hannah. Okay, so I am making an Undertale fanfic, or a fan comic. My OC is Moria, or Mariah. She's a human who happens to look a bit monstrous. She's fully human that happens to have monster traits, fairy background. No worries right there, Hannah. Say, we wanted to see your post right here. So it's an Undertale fan comic. And you're introducing a character who I am guessing, you can correct me right here in the chat. You're going to be introducing a character who who most likely came before Frisk. And so, I mean, if that's the case, if this is one of those people who has ended up there before Frisk, I mean, this all depends basically on how much you want to break the continuity of Undertale. If I were to write a story wherein you're actually trying to adhere to the timeline of Undertale, then I would say that you could just very simply introduce your character as someone who, much like Frisk, fell into the crack, ended up, met Toriel, and Toriel's all like, if anyone finds out that you're human, this is going to be dangerous, but Mariah is like, but I look monstrous, and Toriel, you didn't even realize, Toriel, that I was human at first. You're wondering how did I get past your gate? And so Toriel's like, well, maybe you would actually have a chance to go out through the rest of the kingdom and no one would suspect you. And so, like, if you go that route where Mariah would then go on her adventure and then unfortunately later on be caught by Asgore. I think that the way that I would introduce a character like Mariah would be I would not mind just simply rehashing the introduction that Frisk has, just falling through the cracks, ending up in the underground. But when she meets Toriel, it's a completely different experience because Toriel thinks at first that Mariah is a monster. And so you could have some fun right there of like this monster is treating this human with all of this kindness, is asking where she comes from, what part of the kingdom does she know? Does she happen to know so and so who she looks somewhat similar like? And Mariah could be like, I have no idea what this monster is talking about. I'm just going to play along. And so she plays along. That would be one way that you could take it. Or if you want to just say, to heck with it, I'm going to break all the continuity. I'm going to break all the rules and do whatever I want. I just want the setting and the characters of Undertale. Then what I would say is it then comes down to, why did Mariah end up on the mountain? Understanding the background to your character is going to help you to realize why she is on the adventure that she's on. So understanding her backstory, especially if you are just going to like really kind of just create your own story from whole cloth, knowing more about your character, what motivates her, why she was up on the mountain, all of that will then help you to know how you should introduce her. So let's say that she fled because she looked so monstrous and the people didn't want her there. You could then begin with a much sadder story of how she's like running through the woods, crying, feeling distraught, feeling depressed, not really sure what she's going to do, where is she going to live, how is she going to live, and in her state of just utter despair, she doesn't pay attention to where she's stepping, and she falls through the cracks and ends up in effectively the Underdark within Undertale. And then boom, you can start going on with the story from there. But you firmly established then that she's left, she's running away, she's sad, she's looking for a place to belong. And now in this world of monsters, there is a place where she can belong. So those are two different ways that you can go. Either where you're trying to fit her within the continuity of Undertale, or you're breaking the continuity of Undertale. And knowing what you want to do there helps you better to understand why that character is where they're at. You definitely want to make sure that you have Mariah's backstory and her motivation that leads her to where she goes. So I hope that helps you out a little bit right there. Coming to ISO, I have a dragon story in the works. It's called Trial of Dragons. It's about a man who has amnesia who wakes up in an endless forest that is teeming with draconic creatures. I like that. That's a cool premise right there. Coming back to Hannah, she's going to take place after the monsters have broken free from the magic barrier. Okay, then. So honestly, then if you're going to have that, then it could be that, hey, depending on like how old Mariah is, you could either have her at school and she meets a monster like Monster Kid. The Monster Kid comes to school, or she's on vacation. She's on vacation and she comes across these monsters. Is like, who are these people? Or she reads in the newspaper that monsters are loose again in the world and goes to meet them. These are going to be people that she might be able to really have a kinship with because of her own more monstrous looking traits. So again, it kind of comes down to then, what is her motivation? Why would she want to meet with these monsters? So you want to know why she would want to meet with these monsters. And then after that, figure out, how does she know about these monsters? Is she one of these humans who comes to realize like, oh my gosh, monsters are alive again? Or is it more established that the monsters have already been there for a little while? So knowing a little bit more about that will help you out. Why when you say Moria or Mariah do I think of Mariah Carey's? Because I'm saying Mariah rather than Moria. Like the Tolkien fan in me, oops, makes me want to say Moria, but I don't know if Hannah exactly means Moria, as in the mines of Moria. So I'm assuming that Mariah is the way to pronounce it, but that's my assumption. The Tolkien fan in me is warring with the semi English teacher in me. Mr. Emeriv, yeah, say welcome. Sorry, this was a little bit of an impromptu stream because I wanted to make up for last week's stream where it just like where the stream got shut down semi-ish. The feed, at least the feed was cut out, and oddly enough it worked out. Actually, it ended up being a very serendipitous thing because the plumbing under my sink started breaking, and I found out about it right when the stream went down, and so I didn't bother trying to bring it back to life because it was time to go fix the sink. So that's that was what was going on behind the scenes last week, and so I wanted to make sure to kind of make up for it this week, and then because of my sister's birthday and everything like that, I just won't have the time to do a live stream at all otherwise. Right here, ISO saying I thought Moria is in the mines of Moria. Don't worry, her name is hard. LOL. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you for giving us the pass right there. So I see you're going to give us a little bit more about the personality. And once we have that and we've had the chance to talk that over a little bit, hopefully that will help you on out. And then we'll wind down here with the live stream just because I got to go eat. And I got to go finish making a cake as well. Say, oh, I'm so excited. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of this wonderful thing called a Zitronenrolle. It means literally in German a lemon roll. Oh, it's so delicious. It's a thin cake that has a very hearty icing to it. That's filled with fruits and jam. And what you do is you roll the cake. And so it becomes basically a massive, long cinnamon roll. But it's not a cinnamon roll in the typical sense. It's a lemon roll. It's just so delicious. And it's my first time making one. I had them when I was over in Germany, and they were so good. And so now I'm making one. Roblox, what do you think character names for robots could be? That depends a whole lot on what you want to do with your robots, Roblox. If you have like I think a really great point of reference is murder drones. Before Copper 9 is blasted by Absolute Solver and we have the crazy nuclear winter settling in, all of the drones, as far as we understand, were referred to by their serial number or by a name that had something to do with their serial number. It's only after the robots get their freedom because of the death of the humans that then this offshoot colony starts experimenting effectively, and they start having actual names for each other that they give each other. And so it kind of comes down a lot to what you want to do with the robots and the society in which these robots find themselves in. Are they going to be referred to by serial numbers or by names that definitely truly indicate that they're a robot? Or are they going to have names that would represent more of a personality because either they or other people see them truly as other individuals? And I think actually an interesting hybrid of that is in the game Destiny, where you have all of the machines, you have the living machines who basically have human names, but then with a number attached to it. So like Shiro 9, Ariana 3, and stuff like that. These are actual human names, but they then have a number that helps to designate the fact that they're robotic. Let's see here. Piono, from Mr. Emmer of Pionono. I don't know what Pionono is. Or are we coming back to piano? Oops, you wrote down here. I once made a robot OC when I was 5, and I named it Beep Boop. Nice. Beep Boop works just fine. Roblox, it is like that actually. I've been thinking somewhat like Mark, as in the model. Okay then, awesome. Yeah, say it's totally fine to have that right there. Like Mark sounds like a name that you could easily be all like, yeah, Mark. Mark is a good human name. But when you think about it, it's like, oh, it has a reference to a machine. I got you. I got you right there. So yeah, that works. And it all just kind of comes down to again, to the society that's dealing with these robots and how human they want these robots to be, or how human does the robot want to come across. Another fun example of that actually would be from the show Amphibia. You have Frobo. I like Frobo because it's a robot. It's a frog robot. That's what it is. It's a frog robot is where you get Frobo. But at the same time, Frobo just sounds so individualistic. It doesn't necessarily sound too robotic, which works for Frobo because he does have a personality, has his own unique personality, aside from all of the other killer machines that are created by King Andreas. Roblox, there are also human minds controlling these robots, but they don't know that they're actually human. Oh, that's a fun twist. That's a fun twist. I had a robot OC once. It was I227, and now 227 is almost always a part of my passwords. Don't tell us that kind of information. No! Get yourself NordVPN or something like that. Protect your passwords. Let's see here. Wait a little bit longer. Hopefully Hannah's got some of the personality stuff down. Hannah, you don't need to write out an entire paragraph to let us know about your character's personality. If you need to, simple bullet points will work out just fine. And that'll work out for us. His password is 722-1. All right, everyone. You now know how to hack into ISO's personal accounts. It's all there. Wait, I have the same thing in one of my story ideas too. Human souls that were downloaded into the robot bodies to make an AI. Yeah, and honestly, as a little side note right there, it's one of the things that I think Sword Art Online, the creator for Sword Art Online, got a little bit smarter with what he was doing as he went along. When you get to the allocation or however you're supposed to say the last arc's name, I really liked the idea of how they of how the company created AI by taking NPCs from video games and then having them interact with real people, and just within the space of a game having them actually work with each other, talk things out, developing real personalities, developing problem solving skills by interacting with humans, so that way then those personalities and ways of thinking could then be downloaded by the company and then compiled into a complete AI system. I like that idea. I thought that was neat. That was definitely a smart idea. But unfortunately, because all things must bend to angsty protagonist Kirito, the story just really, really went off the rails. Oh man, there's Sword Art Online. How you disappointed me. I used to really like that anime. I honestly did. I enjoyed it. And then on the second watch, it wasn't quite as good. And then by the time I had the third watch of Sword Art Online, is when it all just came apart. And I was like, wait a second. This is dumb. This is so dumb. I like the Gun Gale Online arc. That was fun, but the ending was so forced, so ridiculous. And all to justify all of these really creepy relationships with Kirito, how like his sister, who's also his cousin, can like him, along with a sad girl next door. It all just all to justify the harem for the angsty protagonist. No thank you. No thank you. Alrighty. Let's see here. So in my story, the humanity of the AI refused to be subjected to slavery as the real humans wanted, so they rebelled. The story takes place in a post-apocalyptic robot invasion world. Oh, that's cool. It's like it's like if Skynet were justified in what it's doing. Alrighty. Let's see here. So Hannah, I'll give you about another minute or so, but then I really will have to start rolling it back. If you're unable to put down everything you want to into the chat, then by all means, if you're not able to in the next couple of minutes put down what you want to, you can put it down into the video comments, and then we can come back later on and we can workshop some things with you in the comments. It's not quite as good as being able to do it live, but we just got to compromise that way if it ends up being that case. In the next few minutes, beginning to wind things down a little bit right here, trying to not think too much about the food that I've got to eat. Oh, yay, here we go. Hannah, so Mariah, she is mischievous, but not too mischievous, can be easily annoyed or angered. She's been called by the idea princess and the witch. So she's been called the idea princess and the witch by her peers, by her fellow students. Okay, then. So if we have a character right here who's prone to mischievousness, but she's not necessarily a troublemaker, which I think is what you're going for right here, and she can get annoyed and easily angered. So she's got a short fuse, and she's been called. She's been called the idea princess or the witch by her peers. Then what I would do is if you have that kind of a focus on almost what seems like a bit of a school setting, then I would introduce her really at school. Oops, why did I misread mischievous as microwave? Maybe you two are also hungry. Oops. So Hannah, here's what I would suggest. I would suggest, and I mean, and you don't have to do this. You do not have to do this with your character. I'm just saying this right here. This is more like an idea that you yourself can workshop. Is that I would introduce Mariah at school. And what I would probably do is I would probably have it where you get to see her for the first half of the day in school, where we get the chance to be introduced to her, and you get a chance to describe what she looks like, describe what things she's good at in school, what things she's not good at school. You get to see how other people might be a little bit standoffish to her, where they're all like, there's the idea princess. And like, as you said right there, like, she's beautiful, but scary. So people stand off from her. They're like, there she is. She's the good, like, there's our good girl, Mariah. But yeah, I just don't feel comfortable around her. People will rely on her to give answers in class. Basically what I do is I'd have like a good opening chapter, which shows what her daily life is like pre-Undertale characters. Really just kind of like show us who she is, show us what angers her, how she can snap, why other people are kind of standoffish to her, how she earned some of her nicknames. I would show all that, just show her in her regular everyday life. And then I would end that chapter with the introduction of one of the Undertale characters coming on in, and then just having her like briefest of reactions. So like, let's say for instance, you have Mariah at school, we get to see what she's like, what subjects she's good at, what subjects she isn't good at, how people react to her, how she maybe doesn't have a whole lot of friends. And we go through about half of the school day, and after lunch she goes on to class, and then I would have it where either a new teacher or a substitute teacher is introduced. Me personally, even though I know that Alphys, who was, because of Deltarune, would be the first choice most people would go with as the teacher, I would either have Sans or Papyrus be the new teacher or be the substitute teacher. and have her just be like, what? And just be totally like, monsters, what the heck? Have that be her reaction. Cut. Next chapter, her then coming to grips with a monster being her teacher, and then either finding out that she really likes or doesn't like Sans or Papyrus. Which, I mean, it's Sans or Papyrus. Either way, you're probably going to enjoy them. And so then you can then have that next chapter be her fully reacting to either Sans or Papyrus, and then beginning to develop a relationship with them. So maybe after class, she goes up and talks to either one, and it's just all like, oh my gosh, monsters. Oh, and then they can be all like, oh, you look kind of monstrous yourself right there. And boom, start that off right there. And that would be how I would introduce her. Now then, I don't know the rest of your plot, like what you want Mariah to do, what is her journey and everything. So that might not fit for what you're planning. But as far as like introducing your character, at least in a slice of life fashion, that's what I would do, because you're trying to establish her, and then you want to show how her world changes because she's now interacting with the characters of Undertale, who are no longer sealed down below ground, but are now out once again in the world of the humans. And what kinds of shenanigans are they going to get up to? That's how I would approach it. And now again, you don't have to go with that if you don't want to. That's just something to kind of get your wheels turning for like, okay, this is what I could do with Mariah. So I hope that helps. And again, you can either take it or you can go in a completely different direction. But hopefully that gets you thinking about what you want to do with Mariah, what kind of monster you want her to first meet with, what the setting should be. That's what I hope this gets you thinking about. Then right here, Roblox again, take ideas from Murder Drones. Yes, Murder Drones is full of so many great ideas. When the last 2 episodes air, I'll be doing my reviews and analyses for those episodes, but then I intend to do a full of season 1 post-mortem where we then look at the entire season and pull out what's good, what wasn't good, and the nice thing is that thanks to Glitch X, we actually have stuff from Liam Vickers about things that he himself admits that he did wrong. And I like that. I like that he was willing to admit to some of that stuff, because now we can actually take that and say, okay, then he himself admitted that he messed up right here. What could have been done to actually fix this mistake? And a lot of the mistakes that he made are actually things that could have really easily been fixed and incorporated into the story overall to really keep the continuity for certain themes, certain character aspects, and for certain characters like our poor boy Thad, could have worked out a whole lot better. So I will be doing that once we finally get the whole of Merger on season 1. Hannah, you're welcome. I'm happy that I could give you a little bit of advice, and I hope that gets you on whatever path you need to go on, so that way you can make the best story that you possibly can for your Undertale fan comic. So with all of that being said, winding down time. I had talked a little bit earlier about how I intend to be releasing a video looking at how Disney can in a creative way solve some of the problems that they're dealing with. I hope that you guys will check that one out, and that you will comment as well on that video, because it's definitely supposed to be the beginner of a larger conversation for the stories that can and probably should be told, especially at the Hollywood level, that might really help out not just Disney, but other companies in making money, connecting with their audiences, and just telling fantastic stories. I also have at least one story that I suggest, or at least 2 stories in that video that I suggest, that if you haven't checked them out yet, you will definitely want to check them out. One is a book and the other is a YouTube short, which tells a fantastic story. And actually, I'll put it right here into the comments, so that way you guys can check it out. It's a little bit of a precursor to what you will see in the video. Reversal of the Hearts. I definitely recommend checking this one out, and I think you might quickly see how it can be expanded really into its own unique and really awesome story. Or I should say, a much larger story, even a full feature length story. So I definitely recommend checking that on out. And so yeah, that's basically it. So I'm going to get off now and enjoy my dinner. If you guys haven't eaten yet, I hope that you have a fantastic meal. And if you are like me, living right now through a winter storm, I hope that you are enjoying it, because winter rains and winter snows, at least in my opinion, are some of the best. So all that being said, guys, thank you so much for coming here, joining us on this live stream. For some of you who have been around now already throughout most of the live stream, thank you so much for hanging out with us for so long. And until the next time, y'all, tschüss.